The three adventurers eyed each other. Adam and Clara were unsure of who the ranger was, and the same for him. The three adventurers spun as a black cloud came crashing through the forest. It made an unearthly sound like a bird. Breaking through the strange cloud was a beast, which glared at the three of them. Unfamiliar with each other, the ranger moved away, while Clara and Adam squared up beside each other. Welcome to Mythical Phylogeny Adventures. I'm your guide, Jason. Today, we meet a Japanese chimera, known as Nue. Let's look into its history and tales. The Nue dates back to 712 AD and was recorded in the Kojiki and the Heike Monogatari from 1371. It has a head like a monkey, a tanuki or raccoon dog like body, legs like a tiger, and a tail like a snake. A few say that it has wings, but that is terribly inconsistent. Most encounters are rather unpleasant. It also makes a sound similar to that of a white thrush bird. The most famous occurrence was in Kyoto, the summer of 1153. The Emperor Konoe was plagued by nightmares, which no medicine or prayer could stop, and it grew worse until a storm erupted late at night. While everyone was asleep, lightning would strike the roof, setting it ablaze. A foul spirit was seen in the storm, and the samurai Minamoto no Yorimasa and his apprentice Ino Hayata, wielding his legendary bow, he shot the beast in the storm, where it landed, and his apprentice then finished it with his sword. The emperor would then reward them with the sword Shishio. But the locals were so scared of the remains that they placed it in a boat and pushed it down the river, only for it to wash ashore in Ashiya, in the Hyogo prefecture. The locals there feared a curse from such remains being left exposed, and commissioned the high priest to oversee the burial. It was then properly laid to rest, and a shrine remains to this day. But there is a version where the remains were divided before being thrown into the river and was scattered around Japan. But that is the rarer version. Now, its appearance isn't actually random. It makes sense under the sexagenary cycle. Under such directions have associations with animals. Northeast is the tiger, southeast is the snake, southwest the monkey, and northwest the dog. This creature is able to fly and is often seen in a storm. In the more modern sense, it is seen as decorations on temples, a warning against malevolence. Now, the snake-like tail is actually pretty common. We see it on the Chimera, Orthros, and Cerberus. Yet, I do not believe that the Nue is related to them. They have a monkey face, which leads me to believe that it is simply convergent evolution. What leads me to believe this is the facial structure. Yes, I know when dealing with mythical creatures, something as flimsy as facial features to judge phylogeny is pretty weak, especially when it also has paws. Yet, there is also a difference in means of attacking. Nue tends to use fear and curses in battle. In direct combat, it seems fairly weak, especially if a single arrow can bring it down. Nor does it poison like the others. Overall, there seems to be just enough difference to say that Nue is not a close relative to the Chimera. The tale is a bit complicated. Is it a separate creature, or the same? That would depend on if there is a linked nervous system. If the eyes are to work, they would need to link to the main brain. But the issue is if it can make noise. It may need its own lung systems, or a false one, to produce sound. It shouldn't need a heart, there is already a big enough one in the chest. Otherwise, we can copy the snake's anatomy and just link them to the rest of the body. Yet how does it fly? Only a few sources claim that it has wings. So on a storm cloud? Well, its size isn't mentioned, but if it dies from just one arrow, it probably isn't the size of an elephant. So a tiger or a monkey perhaps? And that is key here. Tornadoes are well known to lift people into the air, and that should do the trick here. Nue comes from a storm with lightning, and tornadoes and lightning do fairly commonly occur together. And this seems to be the most likely option. Our monkey-faced monster is controlling the wind currents around it to achieve flight. And that brings up a question. Shouldn't the wind currents have knocked the arrow off course? Normally, I would say yes, but this bow and arrow were legendary artifacts already, wielded by a powerful general years ago. Second, there is also a possibility that the wind currents caused the arrow to hit it. How accurate the shot was is arguable. Is its curse upon the Emperor tied with its storm powers? Yes and no. Not the storm itself, but the wind could stir up an infection in dust. If targeted well, it could keep the Emperor awake. Thus, even if healers would cure his illness, the Nue could start it again. Were the locals wise to send the remains down the river rather than deal with it themselves? Well, it was dealt with later, so two options. 1. Their actions were pointless, and they could have buried the remains from the start, rather than let another village handle it. Or 2. The magical energies within it dispersed along the river. Flowing water has often been seen as a purifying force, the one that dilutes corruption. In order to tell the truth, we'd have to look at tales of disease and misfortune along the river. Overall, I think that a priest could have handled the burial initially without difficulty, and it was only the fear of the unknown which led them to discard the remains quickly. The priests of Ashia were reported feeling the malignant powers in the remains and treated it themselves, so the capital should have been more than able. How do we defeat it? Can we reproduce the Battle of the Samurai? It seems to be more active at night, and there are signs of its activity, a localized storm. Watch for strong winds and lightning. It may be targeting someone with its nightmares and curses. It seems to prefer important individuals, maybe choosing based on fame or importance. I mean, taking out an emperor would leave you infamous, at the very least. And if the emperor falls, it would spread chaos across the nation if done right. Now, its curses are difficult to break with prayers and medicine, which means another clue to its presence. Once you know it is there, you'll need to go after it. It flies with wind power, it seems, and announce its presence with lightning. Having lightning resistance potions or enchantments will be critical. Be prepared for the wind to strike you in an attempt to knock you off balance. Be prepared and keep your footing. Most battles will be while it is airborne. This will limit melee weapons and make you focus on range. So, a powerful bow and arrow will be key. It'll need to take the strong wind currents, which it uses to fly. Magic should work though. Fire might be weak against the wind and risk being blown out, but solid ice and lightning will be perfect. It doesn't have a very strong body, so most spells should bring it down. Though, I wonder on the potential of a counterspell to negate its flying ability. In the rare version where it has wings, you will need to try and incapacitate them. use a net or chains to bind it. I'm not sure how much weight it can lift, so heavy chains might help ground it. In the rare occurrence where the fighting is on the ground, it has claws like a tiger, which can shred flesh, which is why you'll want at least some armor. Any should work in theory. Gambeson would potentially be the weakest. It might try biting, and it would hurt, but I think it will be the least dangerous option for it to attack. Just don't let it bite you in the throat. If a single arrow can bring it down, I would assume that any other weapon should pierce its hide. Personally, I would prefer a spear as the best option to give you reach as it moves about, and it keeps you away from its claws. Still, I wouldn't discount a good sword. The Nue is a dangerous addition to the Chimera group of animals. A weird amalgamation of multiple animals works wonders to spawn something utterly amazing. Yet, its power does create a very dangerous beast to face. This is a foe which you should prepare and plan for, and why I'm giving the Nue a 4 of 10 for difficulty. Its mobility is going to give you some work. With the Nue defeated, what becomes of the remains? Well, there was cursed energy in the remains, which means you'll need to cleanse them before doing anything else. Afterwards, you can tan the hides, but be careful. There might be negative forces still tied to it, so I would be leery using it as armor. If you are clever, maybe you could harvest its power to produce storm magic of your own, but probably would blow up in your face. Could you work with one? Well, I wouldn't risk it. Every story about them speaks of them causing curses and bringing ill fortunes. I doubt you could get one to work with you safely. Best to slay it and dispose of the remains. Don't bother trying to use them. The Nue called forth a storm of lightning. Adam and Clara jumped back as he unleashed flames. It mixed with the storm around the beast and vanished in steam. The ranger fired an arrow which flew off course. Seeing the man's plan, Clara prayed for guidance as the ranger took aim again. The Nue's eyes were locked on the flames that came from Adam and didn't notice the ranger's attack. A perfect shot which felled the beast in an instant. The storm vanished as the three adventurers looked at each other. The Nue is a strange creature which brings misfortune and is best dealt with as quickly as possible. Thank you for watching, adventurers. Please return next time for the Hippocampus. Until then, I'll see you on the roads.